everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Louisa. Never ever give up. You see this little charm? Let me bring it up close. This little charm was included in the Bargain Bead Box February collection, and I made a necklace with it, and I had a lot of requests on making a tutorial. So here's the necklace. It's a very beautiful asymmetrical style, and it has little dangles, and it's absolutely adorable. So I thought I would make a tutorial today. It's actually very easy to make. And if you know somebody who's going through a difficult time, maybe they're having struggles with their job, their marriage, or maybe their health, this would make an adorable gift and a very uplifting and motivating gift. So let me go ahead and turn the camera around and I'll let you know what you'll be needing. If you don't subscribe to Bargain Bead Box, that's okay, you can still do it. I'll let you know the size of the beads and the size of the charms and everything you need to know to put it together. All right, so let's get busy. Okay, let's go over the materials. You're going to need a 10mm bead, and this is that cute little lemon bead that came with the February collection. Then you'll also need a smaller Millefiori bead. Now, if you don't have these beads, that's okay. You can use any flat coin bead, but basically you want them to be between size 8 and 10 for these larger ones. And then the third one is the 10mm bead that came with the collection. This is the one that glows in the dark. I was told by a couple of subscribers that it actually has a yellow core that glows in the dark. So you'll need that. And then you'll need 10 4mm beads in a green color if you're using the green and yellow color scheme. And then 2 4mm in the yellow color as well. And then you'll also need one small green 6mm bead and one small 6mm yellow bead. Like I said, the colors are all up to you. This is just the color scheme that I used. I also have a couple of bead caps. These are going to go around that large 10mm bead, round bead. Then of course your 3-leaf component or whatever component you're using. And then you'll need some daisy spacers. These are 4mm in size. You're also going to need one leaf pressed glass bead. As you can see, this one's about 10 by 8mm, I believe it is. And then, of course, your Never Give Up charm. And I did a quick search on the internet. I know you can find these all over the place. It's about 30mm in diameter, I believe. But any charm that's a little bit larger than 10mm would be okay. Now my necklace was 16 inches long because I have a very thin neck, so I didn't want it to be too long, but ultimately you're going to have to decide what length you want, but you will need 3 pieces of chain. This one is about 8 inches, this one is 6 inches, and this one is 2 inches. This is the one that's going to hang at the bottom with the charms. And of course you'll need a toggle clasp as well. Okay, and last but not least, you're going to need some head pins and some jump rings. Now, these are 2.5 inches long, and I like to use these because for me it's more economical to buy a bag of head pins and take the head off and turn it into an eye pin. So that's what I like to use, but if you don't have head pins, eye pins are okay. Just make sure that they're long enough so you can fit all of the beads on one pin. So these are 2.5 inches long, and then you'll need some jump rings as well. These are not the heavy gauge. You don't want to use heavy gauge because you want to make sure that they fit through this loop. So I think these are 21 or 22 gauge, which they're still strong enough to hold the chain and everything, but don't use 18 gauge because you'll never be able to fit 4 jump rings within that loop. And there's my cat. All right, let's go over the structure of the necklace. As you can see, it's a beautiful Y design with dangles hanging down the middle and then some beads up the side of the necklace using the 3-leaf connector to connect them. Let's get a close-up of how I connected everything. As you can see, I used jump rings to connect the dangles and the Never Give Up charm. And the 3-leaf connector had a loop that I was able to use, and so that loop actually holds 4 jump rings. The first one holds the chain, and then as you can see I attached a couple of charms off that same exact loop, and of course the Never Give Up charm as well. And then at the other end of the 3-leaf connector there was a little piece of metal where I was able to hang
another jump ring to connect that beaded component that I made with the lemon bead. So I used a jump ring for that, and then another jump ring at the other end of the component to attach the chain.
As you can see, 4 jump rings fit perfectly fine within that loop. I think if I had put a 5th one in there, it would have been too crowded. So that's another thing you have to take into account. You don't want to crowd anything within a piece of jewelry. You want to make sure that there's freedom of movement, and that you don't have too many things hanging within the one loop, because then it becomes too stiff and there's not enough movement in the necklace. Okay. The other consideration is the actual component itself. Where does it carry the most weight? Does it carry it at this end? Does it carry it at the other end? I did try to use it this way at one point, but then I realized that a lot of the weight was actually at this end. That's where the 2 leaves are, as you can see, and the loop. And so this component actually hung much better this way. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to use it like that. You have to take that into account as well. Each component is different, and how they hang is different depending on the distribution of the weight. All right, so let's go ahead and assemble this necklace. I'm going to use the one-step looper tool. You can either use round nose pliers or your one-step looper if you have one of these. This one forms loops that have a 1.5 millimeter in a diameter. There's also a bigger one that I am going to actually use without confusing anybody. The reason I like to use these is 2 reasons. One, it keeps all my loops uniform, so I don't have to worry about loops being different sizes. 2, it's a lot quicker to use the looper, but you do have to, there is a learning curve. You have to know how to use it. It doesn't always perform the way you want it to perform, so you have to learn how to use it. But if you like to use your round nose pliers, by all means, go ahead and use the round nose pliers to form the loops. One thing I'll tell you though, I am not going to do wrap loops. I'm going to do simple loops, and the reason is that I don't like to see so many wraps in on my charms, because it just shows a lot of wire. In my opinion, I like to have simple loops, and simple loops are safe as long as you use wire that is strong enough, and as long as you make sure that your jump rings are nicely closed and your loops are nicely closed. Okay, so let me just go ahead and begin forming the components. So the first one is going to be this one. So for this you will need an eye pin or a head pin. Like I said earlier, for me it's more economical to use a head pin because I can just come in here and I put it inside the looper like this. I don't have to thread it through the back hole. I simply put it on top of the jaws, give it a little squeeze, it takes the head off, and then it forms a loop at the same time. Then you do have to bend it so that when you pull it out, you'll see that the loop is sitting properly on that head pin. Okay, so once you've done that, thread on a 4 millimeter green bead. Okay, now one thing you do have to make sure you do is you want to make sure that loop is closed, because the looper doesn't always close the loops. So you want to make sure it's nicely closed. Okay, now I use the small looper for this one, the 1.5 millimeters. For the other end, I'm going to use the larger looper, which has the 2.25 millimeter loop. And the reason, I'll show you why in a second. Let me just go ahead and put it in here and thread it through. So there it is. It's a long pin, so I've got to thread it through the back. Place it up against the bead, but not too close, because you don't want that bead to shatter. And then go ahead, give it a squeeze, and then straighten it out. Okay, so I have a large loop at one end and a small loop at the other end. The reason is that I want to now open up this loop and thread on the charm. Okay, now I'm not going to put a jump ring on this side, because the reason is the jump ring will allow the loop to the charm to flip around, and I don't want the charm to flip around. Jump rings allow for freedom of movement, so I want the charm to pretty much sit facing one direction. So that's one of the reasons I'm not putting a jump ring on this charm. Okay, so this is going to hang off the loop of the 3-leaf component, and it's not going to be flipping around. All right, so this one will not have a jump ring. All right, so if you get a head pin that's bent, don't panic. Just go ahead and use your nylon coated pliers to straighten it out and you'll be just fine. Okay, you do want it to be relatively straight. You don't want any kinks on it. Okay, so let's go ahead and form one of the other components that uses a bunch of green beads and a bunch of daisy spacers, and it uses the bead caps as well. Okay, and that would be this one right here. Okay, so the first thing you're going to thread on is one of these bead caps, and then your 10mm bead, round bead, and then another bead cap. Okay, and then the sequence goes like this: green bead, daisy spacer, green bead, daisy spacer, green bead, daisy spacer. That's 3. We want 5 green beads, so let's thread on another 2. Okay, and you want to end with a green bead. So this is what you should have: 5 green beads with daisy spacers in between. You do not want to end with a daisy spacer. You can if you want to, but this is how I did it on my design. Okay, so 5 green beads, 4 daisy spacers, and then I'm going to form another loop. So from now on I'm using the smaller sized looper. Okay, because this one will be hung on a jump ring, so I don't mind that it's a small loop at the other end. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and form the charms that are going to be hanging off the chain, the piece of chain, the dangle. The first thing you're going to thread on is one of these gorgeous semi-transparent agate beads, and then another daisy spacer, and then a yellow 4mm bead. And by the way, this green agate is 6mm approximately, maybe 5 or 6mm. So that's what you should have. And again, you want to form another loop. Okay, so here's one of my charms. This is going to hang on that piece of chain. Now, I don't throw away these pieces if they're long enough, because I can make an eye pin out of this. So I put this aside and I'll use it, either in this project or another project. Okay, so the next charm is going to have one of the yellow 6mm matte agate beads. I forget what the color is, but it's the strand that we received that's a matte color, yellow color. And then another daisy spacer, and then a green bead. Just like that. All right, form your other loop. And so now we have this charm. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do the leaf that hangs off the bottom of that chain. Now what I noticed with this bead is that the holes are pretty small, so you want to make sure that your pin is relatively straight, otherwise it won't go through very easily. Okay, but this one went through just fine. So you're going to need the leaf, and then another daisy spacer, and a 4mm yellow bead this time. Okay, because the leaf is green, so I wanted to add a different color, so I'm using the yellow 4mm bead. And by the way, these are gorgeous. This is actually faceted, believe it or not. It's a faceted fire polish bead with a yellow core. Very pretty. The bead itself is clear. There's no AB finish or anything, but it's just a stunning looking bead. All right, so same thing. Put it through the looper, and then form your loop. Okay, so we have that one done. And the final component is going to be the one that hangs off the other end of the 3-leaf component connector. So that one has an eye pin. So I'm going to take the head off this pin and I'm going to thread on a green 4mm bead, the yellow lemon polymer clay bead, another green 4mm bead, the Millefiori bead. I think these are absolutely gorgeous. I love these. And then you're going to end with a 4mm green bead. No daisy spaces. Okay? All right, let's form the loop at the other end. And again, you want to make sure that the loops are facing the same direction. You'll need 2 plies for that. Okay. So here are my components. This is the one that's going to go on the necklace, and these 3 are going to go at the bottom of the necklace. These 3 charms here are going to go on the chain, so we're going to go ahead and assemble that. So you want to get your 2-inch piece of chain, okay? And the first thing you're going to thread on is the this leaf component, okay? Now for this one, because it hangs at the very bottom, you don't necessarily need a jump ring for this one, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and open up that loop and thread it onto the very, very last link of this 2-inch piece of chain, just like that. And then very carefully make sure you close up that loop. Okay. Now put it down because you want to make sure you hang things somewhat evenly spaced. So I decided these links are actually 3mm by 2mm. It all depends on how big the links are. But for this type of chain, I'm going to hang them about 7 links apart, something like that. Okay, so this is how it's going to hang. All right, now remember the color scheme: green, yellow, yellow, green, green, yellow. You want to alternate so that it's a balanced look. So I'm going to go ahead and grab one of my 4mm jump rings because I want these charms to have a little bit of movement, okay? And I'm going to grab this one, thread it on, and then I'm going to count approximately 7 links. And I'm going to hang it on the 8th link. Don't be too concerned about being perfect because you can always change this. Okay, like I said, it depends on the size of the links of the chain. So if you have links that are bigger, your spacing may have to be different. Okay, so for this piece, it's a 2-inch piece of chain with 2 by 3mm links. I decided I would hang it on the 8th link up from the bottom. Okay, so again, get a 4mm jump ring and open it up. Get your charm. And then grab your chain and count 7 links up from the one where you hung the previous charm. All right, so I have it on the 8th link up, and then close up your jump ring, okay? And then hold it up because you want to make sure everything's hanging properly, okay? And that they're somewhat evenly spaced out. So if you put it down, you'll see visually, you know, that they're pretty even. You can always change this. Like I said, it all depends on what kind of chain you use. But the only thing that's left now is to hang this on the component, but we'll do that later on. But basically, this is how it's going to look. Okay. So here's the component, and we're going to hang the 4 jump rings of this loop. This bar right here is where we're going to hang the component that is going to have the chain attached. Okay, so we're going to do this one first. So get your 4mm jump rings, and you have to make sure that when you hang them, that you hang them in order. Okay, because if you don't, it'll be a bit of a problem. So what I decided to do is to put the long one, this one right here, in the middle, and then these 2 on the side. So let's go ahead and hang this one first. Close it up.
Okay, and then we'll do the next one, the center one. Hang it on the last link first, and then on your loop of the 3-leaf component, close up that jump ring. And by the way, when you close them up, you want to make sure that you look at it from the side and from the top to make sure that those jump rings are closed properly. Okay, so there we go. So now we're going to hang the Never Give Up charm, and again open up that loop, and like I said earlier, we will not be using a jump ring. We're just going to hang it directly onto the 3-leaf connector. Okay, and then just make sure that you close it up really well, and make sure that it's in the proper order. As you can see, I have all 3 charms connected. All right, so now we're going to connect this piece. So once again, get a jump ring, hook it up onto the end of the component, and then this is going to go on that little bar at the other end of the 3-leaf connector. Okay, just like that. And then you want to make sure that you close up that jump ring really well, just like this. So now we have this piece connected. So now the only thing we need to do is connect the chain. So we're going to have the long piece of chain coming off this loop here and the shorter piece coming off that loop. I have my smaller piece here, and I've already connected the toggle in the same way using a jump ring to save time. And I've attached a jump ring at the other end on the last loop, and then just hook it up to the component and close up that jump ring. Okay, so now we're going to connect the other piece of chain. Okay, here's the last piece of chain. This is the longer piece, and I've already attached the toggle at the other end, and I've attached a jump ring. And so now we have to connect it to the bottom end of this 3-leaf connector. So again, you want to make sure that you connect it in the right order. So as you can see, there are the charms, and you want to connect it at this end of the loop. Okay, that's important because otherwise things will not hang properly. And once again, you want to make sure that you close up that loop completely. All right, and there we go. So now that's connected and the necklace is finished. Let me go ahead and put it down on the bead tray so you can see. There it is. I just love this necklace. It's so pretty. I love the message, and it's the perfect gift to give to that special someone who may be struggling with their jobs, their marriage, whatever it is. It's a very, very motivating and uplifting gift, like I said in the beginning of the video. All right, guys, like I do always, let me go ahead and put the necklace on, and I'll come back and model it for you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. Here's the necklace. I love how it looks. I hope you like it as well. And yeah, have fun with it. Use different beads, different charms, and more importantly, give it to that special someone who needs a little bit of uplifting and motivation in their lives. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.